What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk to you about one of the biggest risks or the biggest steps that beginning photographers and videographers can take to up their game, and that will be switching from automatic to manual. So this can be pretty scary for someone who's just starting out. You know, you've gone your whole life using your smartphone and taking these beautifully exposed and great pictures, especially with the new technology that we have in the new Androids and iPhone selections that we have available to us. We can take some absolutely amazing pictures and amazing videos. So just thinking about having that comfort of being automatic and going into manual can scare a lot of people out of photography and out of videography. So I just want to kind of encourage, or make this video to encourage you to take that step and make that step forward into a better videography and photography game, which I know many of you are dying to explore, but just might be a little bit wary or might be a little bit scared to take that next step. But don't worry, I got you covered here in this video. And so this video is going to be a two-part series, mostly, maybe a three-part series, where later I'll be talking about ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. And maybe in depth later on, I'll go into a white balance video as well. But for now, I just kind of want to encourage you. So I've got two cameras here with me today. I've got my iPhone 11 and I've got my Canon 700D. Now this was the very first camera that I started out with. This was the camera where I made that step from going from automatic into manual, and all I had to do was just flick a switch or a dial and I went completely from automatic into manual, which was such a scary world, but it improved me as a videographer and a photographer in the long run. So what are some of the differences between automatic and manual? Well, first of all, when you're in automatic mode, you know, everything is essentially the system or the technology inside whatever device you're using is doing all the work for you. So everything is rightly exposed, the shutter speed is right, and everything's in focus. When you're in manual, you kind of have to do these things yourself, which can take a little bit longer to achieve the same picture as you would in a manual versus to an automatic. But I'm going to get into the pros and cons of having both. And starting out with, we're going to start with the pros and cons of having something like an iPhone or a smartphone or whatever you may use. So the pros of having something that's automatic is, like I said before, everything's rightly exposed, so you don't have to worry about the exposure levels in your image. You can quickly tap in to get focus, so everything is in focus. Or if you just want the subject to be in focus, you can do that by just tapping. So it's really quick to get something in focus as opposed to manual where you have to search for it. It's quick and easy. You can literally pull it out of your pocket, point it, press the shutter, and it will take this absolutely amazing picture. Anyone can be a photographer or a videographer with an iPhone these days. And also the very good thing about having an iPhone or automatic device is that it correctly adjusts the white balance, so you're not going to get a really blue image or a really yellow image because the phone is adjusting all of that for you. Now, some of the cons of having an automatic camera or using a smartphone device to do your work for you is that A, you're not really going to have the full control of your image if you do with an automatic camera. Also, I don't feel like you'll ever be respected in the filmmaking photography community if all you rely on is automatic. And possibly the most important thing is you just don't understand the tool that you're using. And if you don't understand the tool that you're using, how can you really call yourself a professional within this profession? Now, that doesn't mean you can't be a great photographer or a great videographer by just using your phone. For example, I know a lot of people who have really nice creativity with what they want to portray their vision, but they just don't understand the tools of the trade. So they'll have this really dynamic pose and they'll have this really dynamic angle which they'll want to shoot from, and that can create their images to be quite unique and outstanding by just using automatic. So just because you are using an automatic device, it doesn't mean you can't achieve those great results, whether it's photography or videography. Now, the pros of being able to use a manual camera is you have full control over the image. You completely understand how your camera works. You can manually change the focus of what you're filming depending on what you want within the frame. And you can create really nice shallow depth of field if you want to get those nice crispy bokehs that you see in films. You do that all by understanding the settings within your camera to create these nice images. Now, the cons between switching from automatic to manual is it's not easy. It's not an easy process to get your head around. You know, you won't be able to get everything in focus all the time. Like, you may make some mistakes, but that comes with like the learning curve. You will eventually get it. But when you're first starting, it may take a bit longer to get those nicely exposed images, those things in focus, as opposed to using an automatic device like a smartphone. And sometimes your exposure levels, they won't be right, and you have to dial in the exposure. Whether you're playing around with your aperture, your shutter speed, or your ISO, you're gonna have to compensate and get the image rightly exposed before you can press that shutter button or that record button in your camera. For example, if I'm shooting something inside and I'm rightly exposed for an inside shot, but then I go outside, everything's gonna be overexposed and the image is gonna be super, super bright. So I'm gonna have to know my camera and know what adjustments I need to make to get back the exposure even when I'm outside. Whereas with a smartphone or an automatic setting on your camera, it will adjust the exposure for you. So you might be inside sometimes and you might go straight outside, and the device inside, the technology inside that device, will automatically switch between the ISOs and aperture, whatever it is that they're doing inside, to match the exposure settings and get the right correct values for shot going inside to outside. But one thing that's really, really annoying with that is, for example, if you're shooting something, or if you're like, I don't know, let's say you're doing a vlog with your phone and you've got the image here and you're outside, and say if you're moving around a lot, you're gonna get the exposure settings on like maybe the sky that's gonna change constantly, going from bright to dark. And to me, I think that looks really amateurish, and that's not something you want in your video at all. So it's really good to understanding what exposure levels you need so you can be exposed inside and outside, so you can create better quality content. I think ultimately, I just kind of want people to get to know what tools they're using and be comfortable with changing the aperture or changing the ISO or the shutter speed within their camera, so that they become better photographers, better videographers, and go on to learn more and more advanced things within the white balance, and to create really nice cinematic crisp images with the device that they're using, no matter what it may be. So I just essentially want you to go out there and just test out your camera, flick it onto the manual mode and just play around with it and see what kind of things you can get out of it. Because knowing the tools that you use will vastly improve you as a filmmaker. And I just kind of want to leave you guys here with that. So I hope this video kind of encourages you guys to go out and shoot something in manual and not rely on the automatic settings of your phone or whatever device you may be using. But yeah, if you like this video, then please like, subscribe if you haven't so already, and I will be sure to post a part 2 kind of, in a sense, where I'll be breaking down the ISO, the shutter speed and the aperture so you can better control your camera. But yeah, I'll see you soon, and